Story 1. The Midnight at Walmart. The clock struck midnight as I pushed the heavy sliding doors of Walmart, hoping to grab some last-minute groceries before the storm hit. The store was eerily quiet, with only a few employees restocking shelves and the occasional customer wandering the aisles. I shivered as a cold gust of wind blew through the entrance, announcing the impending storm. As I strolled through the fluorescent-lit aisles, a sense of unease crept over me. The dimly lit corners and shadowy shelves made me feel like I was being watched. I brushed off the feeling as just being tired and stressed, but it persisted. I made my way to the canned goods section when I heard a soft whisper behind me. I turned around expecting to see someone nearby, but there was no one. My heart pounded and I chalked it up to my imagination playing tricks on me. The store had a reputation for being haunted, but I'd always been skeptical of such stories. Determined to finish my shopping quickly, I moved to the cereal aisle, grabbing a box of my favorite brand. As I reached for the next item, I noticed a figure standing at the end of the aisle. It was a man dressed in old-fashioned clothing, staring intently at me. His eyes were hollow and dark, sending chills down my spine. Before I could say anything, he vanished into thin air. Fear gripped me, and I felt an overwhelming urge to leave the store. I rushed to the checkout counter, dropping my items on the conveyor belt as I went. The cashier, a young girl, looked up with a concerned expression. "Is everything okay?" she asked, noticing the terror in my eyes. I think I saw something," I stammered, not wanting to sound crazy. Her eyes widened and she whispered, "You've seen him too." "Who do you mean?" I asked, my heart pounding even harder. "The ghost," she replied, glancing around as if afraid he might appear at any moment. I paid for my groceries and hastily left the store. The rain was pouring down, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get away from that place and the unsettling presence I'd felt. Days passed and the encounter haunted my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched even when I was in the safety of my home. Every night, I had nightmares of the ghostly figure in Walmart, and my fear began to consume me. Unable to ignore it any longer, I decided to research the history of the Walmart building. To my astonishment, I discovered that it had once been the site of an old asylum in the early 1900s. The asylum had a dark history, with tales of mistreatment of patients and mysterious disappearances. The figure I had seen matched the description of one of the asylum's former patients who had gone missing under suspicious circumstances. The more I dug into the history, the more I learned about the reported hauntings in the store. Desperate to find some answers, I sought out a local paranormal investigator who specialized in haunted locations. Together, we conducted an overnight investigation at Walmart, armed with cameras, audio recorders, and other equipment. As we ventured into the empty store, the investigator explained that restless spirits often manifested during the late hours. We entered the canned goods aisle, the same spot where I'd seen the ghostly figure. The investigator set up a digital voice recorder and asked if anyone was present. To our astonishment, a faint voice responded on the recording. "Help me." The investigator asked more questions, trying to communicate with the spirit. The atmosphere grew heavy and the temperature dropped significantly. Suddenly, shelves started shaking violently and canned goods flew off, crashing to the floor. We ran, terrified, out of the aisle and continued our investigation in other areas of the store. Each corner seemed to hold a different story, and we heard more unsettling voices and witnessed strange occurrences. After hours of investigation, we finally decided to leave. As we walked to the exit, the lights flickered and we heard a loud bang from the back of the store. The investigator and I turned in time to see a full shopping cart being pushed by an invisible force, hurtling towards us. We barely managed to dodge it before it crashed into the wall, leaving us shaken and breathless. That night was one I would never forget, and it forever changed my perception of the supernatural. The experience at Walmart showed me that some things are beyond our understanding, and that the world is a vast and mysterious place. To this day, I avoid Walmart after dark, knowing that it's a realm where the living and the departed might cross paths, and where the lines between reality and the unknown blur into darkness. Story 2. The Night Shift at Walmart. It was my first night shift at Walmart, and I was filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. As the store emptied of daytime customers, the eeriness of the place became more apparent. The bright fluorescent lights cast long shadows on the aisles, and the quiet hum of the refrigerators added to the sense of isolation. I was assigned to stock shelves in the electronics section, which was located at the back of the store. As I walked through the sprawling aisles, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I tried to dismiss the sensation as new job jitters, but it persisted. I reached the electronics section and began organizing the shelves, arranging the latest gadgets and gaming consoles. The eerie silence was occasionally interrupted by the faint sound of footsteps from other employees, busy with their tasks in distant corners of the store. Suddenly, I heard a distinct thud coming from one of the back aisles. I froze, straining my ears to catch any more sounds. But the store returned to its quiet self, and I convinced myself that it must have been a stray box falling somewhere. As the night progressed, I continued my work, occasionally glancing around to ensure I was alone. Time seemed to crawl, and the store's emptiness began to feel suffocating. Around 2 a.m., I noticed a figure at the end of the electronics aisle. My heart skipped a beat as I squinted to get a better look. It was a woman standing with her back turned to me. Her long, dark hair cascaded down her shoulders, and she wore a tattered white dress that looked out of place in the modern setting. "Hello? Are you okay?" I called out, my voice quivering with a mix of concern and fear. The woman didn't respond, but I could feel her gaze on me, and an icy chill ran down my spine. I took a step closer, trying to reassure myself that she was just another late-night shopper who had lost her way. As I approached, the woman turned slowly to face me, and my breath caught in my throat. Her eyes were hollow and lifeless, and her face was pale and gaunt. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if I were in the presence of something otherworldly. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding, and as I turned to run, I saw another figure out of the corner of my eye. It was a man in old-fashioned clothing, his eyes filled with sadness. Before I could comprehend what I was seeing, he too disappeared into thin air. Terrified, I rushed to find the store manager, hoping to get some answers. I found him in the office, going through paperwork. "Something strange is happening in the store. I saw people who weren't really there," I stammered, trying to explain what had just transpired. The manager looked at me with a mix of concern and skepticism. "You must be tired from your first night shift. Sometimes our minds play tricks on us when we're alone in the store. It happens to all of us at some point." His dismissive explanation didn't comfort me. I knew what I had seen was real, and the fear in my heart refused to subside. Reluctantly, I continued my shift, trying to focus on my work and ignore the strange occurrences. But as the night wore on, the sightings became more frequent. I saw shadows darting between aisles, heard hushed whispers in empty corners, and felt an unsettling presence following me throughout the store. By the time morning arrived, I was exhausted and shaken. I couldn't wait to leave Walmart and never return. As I walked towards the exit, I passed by a wall adorned with black and white photographs of the store's early years. My eyes fell upon a picture of the same man I had seen during my shift. The man in the old-fashioned clothing. The plaque beneath the photograph identified him as the store's founder, who had tragically passed away in the building during its construction. It all started to make sense. The sightings, the eerie atmosphere, the unexplainable sounds. Walmart was haunted by its past. The spirits of those who had once worked and lived here still lingered, unable to move on. I never returned to the night shift at Walmart. The experience had left an indelible mark on me, and I couldn't erase the chilling memories from my mind. I've heard that some brave souls still work the late shift, but they do so with a cautious eye and an acknowledgement that they share the store with restless spirits. To this day, I can't walk past a Walmart without shuddering at the thought of what might be lurking in the shadows, just beyond the bright lights and bustling aisles. Story 3. The Haunting of Walmart. It was a chilly autumn evening when I found myself in Walmart, picking up some groceries after a long day at work. The store was unusually quiet, with only a few employees restocking shelves and a handful of customers scattered throughout the aisles. I felt a sense of unease, but I brushed it off as fatigue from the day's activities. As I walked through the well-lit aisles searching for the items on my shopping list, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every so often, I would glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone following me, but there was no one there. I continued shopping, trying to focus on the task at hand, when I heard a faint whisper behind me. My heart skipped a beat, and I turned around only to find an empty aisle. I shook my head, attributing the sound to the bustling noise of the store, but the feeling of being watched persisted. As I made my way to the frozen food section, a chill ran down my spine. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing at the end of the aisle. I turned to get a better look, but the figure vanished as quickly as it had appeared. My mind played tricks on me, and I tried to convince myself that it was just a trick of the lights or my imagination running wild. Determined to finish my shopping and leave the store, I quickened my pace. However, as I reached the checkout counters, I noticed a middle-aged woman staring at me intently. She had a worn expression on her face, and her eyes seemed to hold a sorrowful depth. I offered a polite smile, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. As I paid for my groceries, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about the store. The cashier, a young woman, seemed to sense my unease and asked, "Everything okay, sir?" "Yeah, I'm fine," I replied, trying to sound casual, but my nerves betrayed me. She gave me a sympathetic smile and said, "Walmart has some strange stories, you know. Some say it's haunted." I laughed nervously, dismissing her comment as a local legend. Yet deep down, I couldn't ignore the unsettling encounters I'd experienced that evening. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about my eerie Walmart visit. The feeling of being watched haunted my dreams, and I became obsessed with the idea of uncovering the truth behind the store's alleged haunting. Driven by curiosity, I delved into the history of the Walmart building. To my surprise, I discovered that it had once been a factory in the early 20th century. Tragic accidents and worker deaths had plagued the factory, giving rise to rumors of lingering spirits. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I decided to investigate further. I reached out to a local paranormal researcher, Jane, who had explored various haunted locations. She agreed to join me in exploring the supernatural side of Walmart. Late one night, Jane and I entered the now deserted store, armed with flashlights and recording devices. The silence was overwhelming, and the empty aisles seemed to stretch into infinity. As we ventured deeper, Jane explained that spirits were said to be most active during the late hours when the world slept. We reached the frozen food section, where I had seen the mysterious figure before. Jane set up an audio recorder and asked if any spirits were present. We waited in silence, hoping for a response. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the aisle, sending shivers down our spines. Jane asked more questions, trying to communicate with the spirits. And to our surprise, we received more responses on the recording. The air felt heavy, and we sensed an unseen presence surrounding us. Objects rattled on the shelves, and the temperature seemed to drop inexplicably. As we moved to the checkout counters, we encountered the same sorrowful woman I had seen during my first visit. Jane attempted to communicate with her, and through a series of questions, we learned her tragic story. She had worked in the factory that once stood on this very spot and had lost her life in a machinery accident. Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the pain and suffering these spirits had endured. Jane and I vowed to help them find peace, and we returned several times to communicate with them, offering words of comfort and solace. Over time, the strange occurrences in Walmart lessened, and the feeling of being watched faded away. The spirits seemed to find peace, finally able to move on from their earthly attachment. The experience at Walmart changed my perspective on the supernatural. It taught me that there are mysteries in this world that we may never fully understand. But that doesn't mean we should dismiss them. Instead, we should approach them with an open mind and a compassionate heart. For even in the most unexpected places, there may be spirits longing for closure and comfort.